Hey guys, Eric here out at the Bethlehem Golf Club. In today's video, we're going to talk about what I think is the best drill of the year. We're labeling it drill of 2021, and really the most important downswing moves. There's two of them that you'll see in all good swings. I want to dive into what those are, what the checkpoints are, and then one drill you can do to combine them both together. Let's dive in. So this is another video that started with a conversation in our community at cogornogolf.com where someone asked, hey, how do I, during my downswing, simultaneously learn how to shallow the shaft angle while also increasing my overall rotation? And I would say in my close to 14 years coaching, those two things are the most common things that I get asked when someone would come in for a lesson right over the years. Hey Eric, I really want to help increase my hip rotation like I see all the pros, but when I do it, I seem to get too far over the top. Or hey Eric, I really want to learn how to shallow the shaft and open my body at the same time. And if we had to simplify it down into the two most important downswing moves, that's what I would say they are. Of course, there's probably like 10, 20 micro details we could go over, but simple version of it, the best players shallow the shaft. We'll talk about what that means in checkpoints, while having a healthy amount of hip rotation. So let's start with the hip rotation first. We're going to show you some images on the screen, and then we'll get to the drill that you can do to put these together, which is the one that I recommended for the gentleman I was talking to. Hip rotation. I would say when you start your swing, the hips should be, let's call it roughly 0, so they're square. During the back swing, your hips are going to turn away from the target, about 45 degrees. And then by the time I get back to impact, you'll see a range, but good ball strikers, you're looking for the hips to be open, let's say somewhere between 20 degrees on the low end and about 45 degrees on a high end. Okay, so you look at a spectrum of 100 or 1,000 great ball strikers, pause them at impact, look at their hip location, they'd be 20 to 45 degrees open. The higher the handicap level, what I typically see with the players I work with is their hips or pelvis are less and less and less open. So how do we do that, right? But how do we also, as we're doing that, get this shaft shallowing? Now, what we look for checkpoints on our site when we're doing our online lessons, there's really 3 checkpoints that I look for. Is in the initial phase of the downswing, and you'll see some of this on the screen, we want to get the shaft angle underneath our shoulder. I would say about mid bicep when you record your swing from down the line. That's like, hey, what's a shallow shaft? That would be a shallow shaft. Anything above the shoulder would be a little bit too steep. I like to see it about mid bicep under the shoulder. Now at that same point in time, about left arm parallel, if we drew a line through the butt of the club, that butt of the club should point roughly on the ball target line or about an inch or 2 outside of it. That would be the second shallowing checkpoint. Shaft under shoulder, butt of the club on or outside the ball line. And then the last checkpoint we use is when the shaft is parallel to the ground. I like to see the club head just slightly inside the hands when the shaft is parallel. So when I'm working with someone and they say, hey, am I shallow enough? How do I know for sure? Those would be the 3 checkpoints that we use on camera. Now the key here, or the trick of it, is how do we do both at the same time? There's one drill that I use with this gentleman. I'll go ahead and show you what that is in just a moment. Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about the hanger training aid. Now, I don't know if you've seen this or used this before, but it is absolutely my new favorite training aid. This hanger here creates and controls what I think is the most important part of the swing, which is the wrist angle. It snaps right on. It takes me probably 30 seconds to put on. I can put it right in my golf bag. And best of all, the main trait of a training aid that's really good is you can hit balls with it. You can actually hit balls with it. So I love this hanger training aids. I've been using it probably for the past 6 to 7 weeks in my own game. You may have seen me in videos talk about, hey, I'm really trying to get my left wrist flat at the top. Look at when I do that well, how that sits on my forearm. Now watch when I cut my wrist, how that comes off. Immediate feedback for where my wrist angle's at. I like to use this even during my takeaway. When I set it up here, I like to keep it between my arms during my takeaway, press it against my left wrist for flat left wrist at the top, press it more against. Look at when I press it against, how that shallows my shaft, that keeps my club face square to closed, helps me hit from inside. So I absolutely love this. I firmly believe that this is good for every single golfer. There's no one that can have too flat of a left wrist. One of the few things that all good ball strikers have, we're trying to have. Flat left wrist, right? Super easy to use, incredible immediate feedback. With the coupon code GogornoGolf.com, it's only $59, and I can actually hit balls with it and get instant feedback. Yes, I don't know if you can hear that, but that's about as compressed as I can hit a ball, and that's the main point of this hanger. Iron compression. You're gonna absolutely love it. We'll put all the details down in the description down below. All right, so here is this combo drill. This is what I think is the best drill that you can do to add hip rotation and shallow the shaft at the same time like the pros do. Now bear with me here for a second. Let's go through the setup. This looks, I think, a little more complicated than maybe it is. The first things that are important would be the sticks on the ground, okay? So if I look at the golf ball straight forward towards 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, let's say 3 o'clock is my toe line. I put the first shaft, the yellow one, we'll call it 4 o'clock. Okay, rough estimates, don't judge me, roughly 4 o'clock. Then on the front side, I've got another stick, 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock. So if I back out here, I have this little arc going on here. I got a 4 o'clock for the shaft. I've got an 8 o'clock for my hips. That's why I have this belt, this little stick here in my belt loops, so I can see where I go in the follow through. Now the key here, and then I'll talk about this stick, this is an add-on. The key here is you want to be able to get the shaft over 4 o'clock while having the stick over 8 o'clock. The drill, the #1 drill of 2021, it's going to go down in history as the best drill of the year, is shaft over 4, hips over 8. Shaft over 4, hips over 8. Now, I added in this stick. I really like this as a swing plane station. Basically, the angle this is on, and we use this a lot in our lessons, if I put the club down my toe line, I give myself maybe 3 inches there. I can make it a little harder, but this is just so that I don't come over the top and hit the stick. Just another thing that's going to help me get over 4. Now, usually when I'm working with someone, I'll have them start with getting used to having the shaft over 4. Like if you're someone whose downswing gets too steep and over the top, you likely want to learn this piece first. So let's go through that part first, and then we'll add the hip rotation into it. So we'll take our normal setup position. I'm going to go up to the top, and then I'm going to come back down. And from my point of view, the shaft is literally right over the yellow. So the club head feels quite a bit inside my hands. Notice I still have my right elbow in towards my left, so I don't have my arm way behind me, and the club is over 4. Now what I want to first learn is how to get that club over 4 o'clock and slowly learn, especially if you're way over the top, how to hit balls with that. Okay, this is not something that you're going to go full swing, full speed, especially if you've been over the top for a while. So when I recommended this drill, I said, hey, let's first start and hit a 7-iron, maybe about 100, 120 yards, and just get a sense of the club working from inside. Now, I already swing from inside. My tendency, in fact, is to swing too far from inside. So for me, this is a bit exaggerated, but most of the players we work with get too far out, and so you need to feel that club head much more behind your hands. You should see more of a draw pattern. Maybe the ball starting a little bit farther to the right and then curving a little bit farther to the left. And now when you're practicing this, especially if it's new, like that's about a 10-yard curve for me, a little more than I would normally have. This should feel exaggerated. In fact, that's understating it for some of you. It should feel wild, like ridiculously inside if you're normally over the top. And then, hey, how do I know if I'm actually doing it correctly? Well, really the only answer is to videotape it. All right, work with a good coach and videotape it. Now the gentleman, let's do one more, who I recommended this to, you know, and oftentimes this is the case, he had things earlier in his swing that was leading to the steep downswing. In particular, he had a grip issue, the club face was open, which made him swing over the top. And oftentimes that's the case. That's where I'd recommend you guys send your swings in so we could actually see, hey, is there a root cause? But without me seeing it, and if I had to put a shallowing drill together, This would be the first one. And it works really good. You got to pull your video out a little bit and see where you actually get to. Club over 4. So once I can slowly build up to fuller swings and get the club working from inside and start seeing nice draws, then I want to add the hip rotation, right? And really, what I want to be able to learn how to do is do those moves together. So I like to put the stick through the belt loops, and I like that as a reference point where once the club is over 4, that stick gets over 8. And this is sort of the checkpoint that we're looking for here, is you want to feel like the edge of this stick and the club head are as far apart as possible. So the club head is inside my hands, and then this stick is to the left. It's like I want the club head as far back here while I have the hip as far this way as possible. The more I have those two separated, the more hip rotation I have and the more inside I get. Players that I see that overdo those usually hit it like 300 yards. They shoot under par. Okay, they have good problems that we all want. So I would not be shy about getting this club head behind me and getting my hips around. If you get to the point where you overdo either of those, we're in really good shape. So the feels here to start with are, and I'm doing this about at the same time, left hip around, keep the club head back. Again, notice, big key here, my right elbow is squeezed in towards my left. Left hip around, club over 4. And now I'm going to start the process of hitting. And as with learning anything else, I'm going to hit, film, look at it, assess, adjust. Hit, film, look at it, assess, adjust, and keep increasing the exaggeration of these feels. Left hip, the stick gets past 8 while this stick is over 4. If this is new for you, you're going to look at this and be like, what the heck? Like, my hip feels so open and my club feels so far behind me. It feels like that distance is so wide. Yes, that's for you what that needs to feel like. So left hip past 8, club over 4. That's the feel. And as I start to put those together, you know, there's some detail in the timing here, but let's look at it to start with that you're just basically doing them simultaneously. You're getting the hip over 8. If anything, you're doing the hip motion a little bit first, okay? If anything, I'm starting here. I'm letting the hip motion drive the pattern, and then I'm keeping that club head in. Because the hip motion does want to make the club head come out. You got to resist that a little bit. So hip left of 8, club head stays in. And I'm imagining the distance between those two is as wide as possible. So this is what I think is the best drill station. Do I think you're going to hit balls with this one day and take this one simple feel to the golf course and be fixed forever? Absolutely, I do not. Do I think if you're willing to hit 20 to 30 reps for the next 90 days, go slow, perhaps work with a coach, right? But give yourself feedback via video, that you could fix your steep downswing and lack of hip rotation? Absolutely, because we do it all the time. But you have to take your time with it. You got to give yourself the feedback. This is the drill station. We're going to put a recommended video that's going to go over this back station a little bit more if you have more questions on that. But get the club over 4 first, add the hip rotation in second. If you want to check out Cogorno Golf, we'll also put that card on the screen. Any comments or questions you guys have, leave them in the comments section down below. Thanks for watching.